All right, everybody, welcome back to Beans No Ball for the Week 12 recap. Obviously, got a nice full slate of games this week. So to cover them, obviously, it's a little different because of how Thanksgiving works. So I will be opening it up our recap just to make sure everything lines up. So to open this up with our, obviously the traditional Lions getting beaten down on Thanksgiving. I mean, what can we start off here? I mean, hey, looks like we got a return of prime Jared Goff. I mean, sure he kept it down on the interceptions. That's a good thing for the Lions here. But two very costly fumbles to really open up this game. And I guess for we look at Jordan Love. I mean, is his little come up starting a little early? I know your little your take on him. We've talked about it time and time again. And in recent games, he's kind of been, coming into his own. And, maybe, we see that NFC North is definitely wide open. So you never know. There maybe could be a chance for even that part of your prediction to kind of come to fruition in its own. But, as for the Lions, this is another pretty disappointing loss. It's a divisional loss, so that makes it even worse. I'm not, really too worried. I mean, they're still, they're 8-3. Favorable matchup coming up. So we'll just have to wait and see how they regroup. But, I mean, it's still telling for them to lose this and, once again, had to suffer seeing them lose on Thanksgiving.
Yeah, honestly, like you said, tradition is continuing with this Lions losing on Thanksgiving, still getting unlucky, especially with this Packers team that's, regrets for the most part. And, my take on Jordan Love from the beginning of the season, starting to look a little better as picking it up, but, still a lot of games to play. And, I would have a little worry for this Lions team. Just closing with the season, with seeding purposes specifically for them, but at the same time, still a lot of time to regroup. Now, moving on to my game, which was probably, once again, another blowout by this Cowboys team. And, coming into this, this game, this Commanders team, Sam Howell, I know how I had my takes on Sam Howell before saying that I didn't think he was going to pick it up for this Commanders team. But once again, he's another player that is really proving me wrong. And once again, I'm eating my words, taking my own, moving on, and I'm, obviously accepting it. But Sam Howell, he could potentially beat their franchise quarterback finally after the departure of Kirk Cousins a couple years ago and them not be able to find a franchise quarterback. Sam Howell, it looks like he's the answer, but the pieces around him, that's really the main problem. I know you have receivers like Scary Terry, but he's great. Don't get me wrong, but the season's not going his way. And Jahan Dotson, who has a lot of raw talent, but that O-line and that defense is what's really kind of bolstering them losing. And coming into this Cowboys team, everyone expected a blowout. Like, this is without a doubt going to be a blowout. Dak Prescott was going to cook this defense, and he did. CeeDee Lamb, he was, once again, another game. He was kind of a little quiet for the most part, but picked it up as soon as the game went on. Same with Brandon Cook getting more involved. Tony Pollard, this is nice to see. He's finally getting the explosive that he used to be last year and the years we drafted him. Tony Pollard's looking very good now, getting to the end zone. And, I've been saying this before with Rico Dowdle. He's finally getting some snaps. And realistically, he's playing how Pollard originally used to play before his injury, So, that duo can, it could really take us far in the rest of the game, especially, we have a really hard strength of schedule, which, I would elaborate later on. But once again, it's a divisional game. It was great. Nice Thanksgiving. Thankfully, I was a little happy. Dak Prescott continuing to make his MVP run candidate. Obviously, lots of narratives here and there. And then story of the game, DaRon Bland. I mean, record-breaking game. This is one that was, I got off my seat for this. This is exciting. I mean, most pick sixes in the season, and he's did this in 11 games. Still a lot of games to play, but obviously everyone's like, oh, he hasn't done it against the good teams. No one tells us done it against these bad teams that we played. So, once again, it's all a narrative thing, but obviously, once again, this Cowboys team needs to regroup and, finish out strong with the remaining schedule.
Yeah, obviously, we said since last week, DaRon Bland definitely making his case to get up there with other big names to get that Defensive Player of the Year. And, I know you talked about it, the strength of schedule. Sure, these next coming games will be very telling. I know we're going to get into that later too, but, let's obviously keep it down with the types of teams you guys have been playing for the most part. Of course, closing out the Thanksgiving slate, another blowout. It was just a full slate of blowouts in this Thanksgiving, this year for Thanksgiving. And we expected it a lot closer, but definitely we are seeing how the Seahawks are in a absolute tailspin right now. We can mainly tell, the Geno Smith injury is definitely becoming a factor. Sure, he, you would believe he was 100%, but he's definitely not 100%. He wants to say that as much as he wants, but he's just putting himself in that position that he wants to he wants to still try put in position, especially because we see how Drew Lock, and that little sample size we got to see him against my Rams, definitely not gonna put them in a position to win. So we see that right there, and I mean, a banged up Geno Smith against this insane Niners defense. I mean, we could have seen this coming a mile away. The Seahawks did kind of put themselves in a position to kind of get a little closer. I mean, they did cut it to, I believe it was an 11-point game going into the fourth quarter, but Brandon Ayuk touchdown really put it out of reach. So we see right now, as for the Seahawks, it is getting a little dicey about their playoff chances. Some teams in the NFC are creeping up, getting hot at the right time. We'll have to see for them. And the 49ers, they're picking it up right now. We see other teams are gonna get into those rough parts of the schedule. We see the Lions going a little bit down. Niners did take that 2 seed right back, so we'll see how the NFC hierarchy shifts.
Yeah, without a doubt, like you just said, this hierarchy in the NFC, it's gonna start bolstering with these couple teams. Niners finally starting to pick it up more, and despite it was a dysfunctional Seahawks team with Geno Smith's injury, and their playoff chances, they're still alive, but obviously, within the division, still a lot at stake, and they got a tough matchup coming up. And then obviously that concludes the Thanksgiving slate. Now moving on to our Black Friday game, which is we haven't got one of this. I believe this was the first Black Friday game that we've ever received. And it was. Sure, it was good for the most part, but one-sided without a doubt. I was low-key kind of surprised at the beginning that the Jets were, I guess you could say, somewhat in it for the most part in the second quarter, kind of making a run, but the Hail Mary pick six, the Hail Mary pick six, which it was definitely a play. I was very, it was cool to see. I mean, you rarely see that, a Hail Mary on the final play before half, and that pick six. It was really good to see. Kind of see pretty much Dolphins, pretty much walking away with this. And then obviously I believe Tua threw a pick six as well, if I'm not wrong, or they just threw the picks. So yeah, and it started to look like Jets were starting to come back, but obviously Tyreek, Mostert, and then Waddle, pretty much putting on ice. Same with Tua towards the second half. But really, the Jets story of this game is, Dolphins, once again, beating up bad teams. Same thing, you can put this narrative on them. But with the Jets, their playoff chances, it just slimmed down worse. I believe they have just about 1% to a little over 1% to make this playoffs team, let alone with Rodgers announcing he's trying to come for like mid-December, towards late, I believe December 24th, mid-December, late December, around that area, before January for sure. But realistically, I would just say Rodgers for next season. Really get him fully recovered, build around him in the offseason. Because really, going with Tim Boyle over Zach Wilson. I mean, I didn't really think that was going to be a big step in the right direction. You're pretty much benching mid for mid. I mean, or subpar for subpar. I mean, you can't argue either or, but it was not the answer for the Jets. And this defense, it just got too tired out. I mean, the defense is the reason why they've been in games, and with such a elite defense. I guess you can call it an elite defense. You can call it whatever you want, but they have to put it down there with Sauce Gardner, and then DJ Reed, which he's going to cook most of the game, but it sucks. Very elite defense that really can't do anything. They're getting too tired with this offense that cannot produce. They're really just a quarterback away and a coordinator away from really just being a great Jets team. And Rodgers, is there potential he could fix the Jets team? Yes, but with the pieces around him for the potential of next season, it's really looking very slim.
Yeah, no, of course. I mean, there's no reason to rush him back. I mean, sure. I mean, he wants to be in there, but I mean, you can see they're not even really in the contention for the playoffs, so why bother? But of course, we'll move it into the Sunday slate, and I'll open this up with a, I guess, pretty surprising game. One of these games that, was going to determine the hierarchy in division, and in a very mediocre NFC South. There's still a long way to go here, but for the moment, the Falcons have taken sole possession of first place right here. A game we both expected to go the other way. Obviously, we're kind of expecting Derek Carr to kind of, I mean, he's been up and down. He's probably been one of the more bipolar quarterbacks in the league right now. And I mean, sure, overall, he had some good numbers, but I mean, the key thing here, that pick six to Jesse Bates, that kind of did dictate the whole narrative of this game. I mean, we even see Derek Carr kind of like throwing his own little narrative about that pick. I mean, just own up to it, man. I mean, it was a bad read right there. Obviously, you're gonna expect him to come down in that coverage, and I mean, overall, I mean, that kind of did set the whole momentum. I mean, the Saints were fighting back, sure, but hey, Desmond Ridder kind of did. I mean, he pulled his weight. I mean, I know I've been pretty down on him, but in this game he did do just enough to win. And we also, I mean, my most telling play for me was that I don't remember. I mean, it was late in the game. He had all out pressure on him. I believe it was the third touchdown in the game, that the touchdown to Bijan Robinson. All out pressure all over him. It looked like he was just lobbing it out of bounds, and ends up in Bijan's hands. Just a really great play. So, I mean, who knows if he can kind of work some magic at the end of the season? Probably wouldn't expect it. Probably a little one-hit wonder for this game, but for the moment, anything's possible right here. The Falcons are looking pretty good in these divisional games, but hierarchy definitely shifts in this topsy-turvy division.
Yeah, an NFC South battle like this, there's gonna be a winner regardless, and especially with this really weak division. They're literally the NFC East for 2020. This is the new division that's very lackluster, and it's really wide open. Anyone can
South divisions.
Yeah, anybody can really win this division, but it just, from the looks of it, Derek Carr, I really don't think that's the answer, even though the hype I was bringing up in the offseason. Moving on to another divisional matchup with the AFC North, which is one of probably the little tougher divisions now. Steelers and Bengals. I think this is safe to say Bengals. I think you just call it wraps for this season. I mean, after Joe Burrow with the torn ligament in his wrist against the Thursday nighter in the Ravens game, that's pretty much what set the deal for them. And they were close in this game. Do not get me wrong. But the Steelers defense was really getting it was Jake Browning, I believe. Yes, Jake Browning. For the most, but he was pretty much keeping him in the game, which is nice to see, really. But it's just a lot of questions are speculating whether you either could roll with him or AJ McCarron. AJ McCarron, he has a little bit more experience. He's set with the NFL, even though he never really got the chance. And in college, he was great. He was great in college, but never really got that start in the NFL. And could he turn the Bengals season around? Potentially, yes, but we really don't know, especially with how with the Ravens and the Steelers now really bolstering this AFC North. And Steelers, 400-yard first 400-yard game in 59 games. I believe that's the correct statistic since Matt Canada gone, which first coordinator gone since 1941. And it's really good to see. I mean, sure, we've been dogging on Pickett pretty much this whole season, but look, they're winning. Defenses was keeping him in there. Joey Porter, who I've had high hopes for, he's playing great, playing really great. TJ Watt, one of the candidates for Defensive Player of the Year, which is your guy, really keeping this. And he pretty much sealed the deal in the fourth quarter for the Steelers team. But obviously, Kenny Pickett, he had a good game, but still a lot of games to play. And just one game, and how we've been basing off performances off one games, and with Malik Willis, Josh Dobbs. I'm especially not Malik Willis, Will Levis, Josh Dobbs, and we see how the turnout comes. So I will wait to see at least one or two more games to see if Kenny Pickett can really bring this team together, and Matt Canada was really the problem.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, you can really put the blame on Canada. I mean, sure, Pickett's still, phenomenal talent, and we do have to say that right there. It just has to be, who can actually bring out that talent and how much that translates into the NFL, which, looking at this, it looks like the change of scenery is definitely helping, but, as you said, we're just going to have to wait and see how this actually translates. Of course, moving into another guy, we just mentioned, is he going to be a big part? I mean, here in the Titans and Panthers, and, Will Levis came out to actually get a win. Probably wasn't the greatest on the stat sheet, of course, but I mean, it's just another one. Obviously, if we're really thinking about it, this was a game for Derrick Henry. I mean, he got himself into the end zone twice. I mean, and what we always talk about, if Derrick Henry gets going, that's all the Titans really need. I mean, there's games where they can't even get going when Henry's good, but obviously this wasn't the case. I mean, honestly, it doesn't even matter who got going. We kind of really expected this against a pretty subpar, not even subpar, just a terrible Panthers team. Let's just put it that way. And I mean, just getting into the Panthers. I mean, obviously this was the last straw. We already talked about this. Frank Reich was canned. They also did get rid of Josh McCown as their quarterbacks coach, someone that probably was expected to be a pretty good mentor for Bryce Young. Obviously that wasn't working. They did name their interim head coach. I don't remember who was at the moment, but that's we'll probably just get into that later. But we'll see how it can ride out with that. Obviously, they will be more heavily into that head coach market, and we'll just have to wait and see. But it's a good sign for the Titans, but they're pretty much out of this race.
Yeah, just a lot of regrouping for this Panthers team. We kind of want to start to feel for Bryce. I mean, he has a lot of potential, but really it's just the situation he's put in. The owner's really killing this Panthers team. It's really, really not more to say about this, but Bryce Young, he's gonna have a lot of potential, without a doubt. And now moving on to another game, which was kind of another game that for the Indianapolis Colts to kind of keep up in the race for the playoffs. But it was a battle between Mayfield and Minshew, and it was a pretty okay battle between the two. But this really just came down to which defense was going to get the stop, and the Colts defense where they really stepped it up towards the end, and they kind of got it good for this Colts. I mean, Minshew, he had a pretty mid game. I mean, yeah, he threw for 250 yards, but an interception, kind of like doesn't really even know how he stands there. But for both teams, the run game is what really kept them both. I mean, Rachaad White, who's a player that no one really expected him to pick it up, really wasn't picking it up in the beginning of the season, but rushed for exactly 100 on the dot on 15 carries, which is kind of nice to see that their run game's finally starting to pick it up a bit, especially for a guy who was was proving a lot of people wrong. And then JT, I mean, I know how you're, I guess, excited for him to return from his injury. Had a little subpar game, started recruitment back, but obviously this is another blow for the Colts since he will be missing, I believe, 2 to 3 games with a thumb injury. So that's gonna be another big loss. But when you got Zach Moss, who had some glimpses, some bright spots in some couple games. So it's good to see that the run game could potentially still be a little good with Zach Moss. Hopefully he doesn't have some shit shows where he just doesn't produce at all. And then Pittman, I know you have high praise for Pittman's, a USC guy that we both really like. Really starting to pick it up more, really getting more involved. He's, obviously him being the number 1 receiver, and then obviously with all the other receivers that are really not like last. I mean, Josh Downs, he has potential to be a pretty decent receiver for this Colts team, but Pittman's really stepping it up, and it's nice to see. I mean, Colts, they're still in this playoff race, in this AFC South, but really, you could see them getting the 7th seed, but again, it is still a really bolstered AFC. So them getting into the playoffs are pretty much gonna have to win out if they want a potential chance.
Yeah, and it is wide open in the AFC wildcard position. Like you said, they hold that 7th seed at the moment. It's just also wait and see. There's a lot of different teams that do have a chance. But of course, now let's move it into the Patriots and Giants. And I mean, what a game to get into here. Let's just get it over with, man. I mean, pretty terrible overall. I mean, hey, give the praise to the Giants. At the end of the day, they got it done. A win's a win, as ugly as it is. I mean, Tommy DeVito, ain't even cracked 200 yards. Got the team a touchdown, obviously. So it was serviceable. You could see it in our face. It was a pretty shit game. What are we gonna say? As for the Patriots, Mac Jones, 2 interceptions yet again. He got benched at halftime. Zappe came in. Sure, he led that first drive. It was good. Stevenson got into the end zone, but after that, nothing was really going. Zappe himself threw an interception, and Patriots had a chance to come and win this game. Well, after the Zappe interception, Giants took a lead. It all came down to, hey, Zappe did put the team in a position to win this game. But obviously the Patriots kicker, a 35-yarder to lose this game. Just definitely killer. I expected this game to be over. I was ready to, not over, send this game to overtime. But, even my dad was even saying, watch him miss this. He missed it. Really couldn't believe that there. So, not just telling how the Patriots season is going right now. 2-9 for Bill Belichick. Obviously, you really expect him to, you expect Robert Kraft to just let him ride this out. I think, they got too much respect for Belichick to fire him in season. So we'll just have to wait out till then, I guess.
Yeah, pretty boring game between, the Giants and the Patriots. Mac Jones, his tenure is done with the Patriots this offseason, without a doubt. Players are already done with them. Coaches are fed up. Either they're going to roll with Zappe or, Drake May. You are a New England Patriot. Who knows? Is it potential? Yes, it is very much potentially wise it could happen. But, it's good to see, though, Tommy DeVito, playing very well for this Giants team. But still, not so well. And now moving on to another AFC South battle, which was probably one of the better games of last week. This was a very close game. Very close game. This was a battle between, Trevor Lawrence and C.J. Stroud. Stroud, I guess you can say he outplayed Trevor, just a slither, but really C.J. Stroud, we had a little discussion about this, like I know you brought it up, like he can't be doing everything. What more can Stroud do? I mean, they had the potential to probably tie up the game, even win it the final drive, and obviously CJ Stroud had 2 game-winning drives already this season as a rookie quarterback. And obviously got the offensive rookie, the rookie of the year award on lock regardless, but he can only do so much. I mean, the run game wasn't producing at all. I mean, he literally led the Texans in rushing yards, but O-line really wasn't protecting them when they really needed to. And honestly, a little bit more protection in that final drive really could have been a tie game, and could have sent it to overtime. But obviously it's a lot of what is hypothetical situations, you don't know. But the O-line really, he was running for his life, especially that one play where I think it should have about 12 seconds. He just kept running around, no one was getting open. And you would expect, Nico Collins to tank down, and Dalton Schultz was kind of picking it up for the most part, but had another pretty lousy game as well. But Nico Collins stepped up this game really good, staying with Tank Dell, which is another player pretty high on this season with this Texans team. But really, they just really couldn't have shut it out this final drive. And it sucks to see because they were making a really huge push to the playoffs. And, they still have a lot of push. Stroud still can carry this team to this playoffs. But obviously in the South with the Jaguars team that's, it's 8-3, potentially could get away with this division. But like we said, still a lot of games to play. And I'm going to keep bringing up that December football narrative. It's going to be an extremely tough month, especially with seeding and playoff implications in hand.
Yeah, I mean, obviously this was a game, we expected CJ Stroud to pull this out, and I mean he was close. And I mean, obviously the big thing here, it did come down to their kicker. I don't remember his first name. I think it was Matt Amendola. It came down to it. I mean, look, they put so much pressure on him. He hadn't even made a 50-yarder to this point. He comes that close to, was it a 58-yarder or something like that? So I mean, look, props to him. He just missed it. I mean, it's tough to put a guy in that position when he hasn't even made a 50. But of course, let's move it into my game, and dare I get my hopes up yet again? I mean, sure, it is the Cardinals. I will pump the brakes a little bit there, but I mean, hey, this game was definitely reminiscent of that wild card game 2 years ago. Always really love to see the Rams really dominating the Cardinals. It's obviously our one of the things that we do well, one of the few things we've done well in the past 2 years. But let's just get into this. Kyren motherfucking Williams, man, what a game for him. His first game back from IR. I mean, obviously his last game was that Cardinals game back at SoFi. He had a great game there. Now, obviously here, almost 150 yards rushing, but over 200 yards scrimmage, and those 2 touchdowns were receiving. Little cool to see there, him actually getting himself in the receiving game. So, I'll be joking with you a little bit. Hey, he's there's so many mediocre backs in the league. He's already top 10. I mean, he's really making a case, in the future to really be one of those feature backs in the league. And it really excites me to see him, play this phenomenally. And someone else, Tyler Higbee himself, also got into the end zone 2 times. Just a really nice to see him there. He's obviously been one of the, I mean, in a league that it's basically just Travis Kelce and maybe George Kittle. Tyler Higbee kind of makes a name for himself little by little, and also really good to see him find himself back in the end zone. Obviously this comes back to Matthew Stafford, 4 touchdowns on the day here. Just also it's phenomenal to see him. I mean, I believe this is by far the most touchdowns he's gotten all year. He hasn't gotten more than 2 until this point, so it's nice to see him getting a little bit of a resurgence. And I mean, overall, just everyone was clicking. It was just a great complete game overall. I mean, it did look a little dicey at first, I mean, just that first drive, Kyler did just march the Cardinals down, got that 2-point conversion to even take the lead. But after that, it was all Rams. Really exciting to see that. Just a great win overall. At this point, 1 game back from the wild card. We do have the tiebreaker on the Seahawks, so just wait and see. The hope is definitely there. We got overall a favorable schedule, if I do say so. But I'll to wait and see.
Yeah, without a doubt, Rams really making a comeback. Still, really projecting like this playoff, especially with the resurgence of Kyren Williams. Still a lot to take, but like we said, NFC that finally starting to get closer. So we can see what the Rams can finally do these past next couple games, especially with Stafford. Now we're going to the next game, which is probably gonna be one of the better games, but pretty much one-sided. The Denver Broncos, man, winning 5 straight. and this is the longest win streak so far in the league, for the most part. And from the looks of it, it's kind of making my playoff bracket looking a little better, man. I mean, even when they're at 3-5, Russell Wilson, he was playing great football. He pretty much had a like stats with Mahomes, but obviously getting overlooked out with the record. And I would say, when the losses, I would say, Russell Wilson here and this and that, blah blah blah. I'll admit that, but he's really stepping it up. This team's finally stepping it up. This offense is finally clicking. Sean Payton is finally doing what he does best as a head coach. Sure, you can say, oh, he got carried by Breeze, blah blah blah, and he's an elite quarterback. Sure, you can say all that yip you want, but this is really great to see for Sean Payton, especially had a lot of high hopes. And I had the Broncos making it in the 7th seed with 11-6. And it could be potential. Now, like I talked about in the last Bean Talk episode, I'm kind of getting a parallel from the 2018 Cowboys, like I said, starting 3-5 and finally making a run. This is really nice. This is really nice to see. And parallel like this game, they beat a top team like the Browns. Cowboys beat a top team like the Saints and not Thursday Nighters. So really seeing a lot of likeness between those two teams. But Broncos, they're really making a push. I mean, it's really nice to see Russell Wilson. I said it in the beginning of the season, I was not going to let that one season last year going to depict his future career. He's a Hall of Famer, do not get me wrong. But, that season kind of put his resume down in the drain. But Russell Wilson's finally clicking. So is Cortland Sutton. He was another guy I really hoped he was going to step it up. But, he's doing a Jerry Jeudy, still here and there. But that defense with Patrick Surtain, it's looking very, very great. Broncos can really make a huge push for this playoff. As for the Browns, with Dorian Thompson and whoever's going to get the start, I'm pretty sure it's going to be PJ Walker. It's really that defense can only do so much. I feel like the offense can't click in these games. They could possibly, not really make the playoffs if we want to be realistic.
Yeah, and obviously, I mean, in this game, I won't say too telling of the Broncos because if we're being honest, sure, the defense, top notch for the Browns, but it's that offense that doesn't tell you too much about that Broncos defense. So we'll have to wait and see moving forward. Obviously, they got a really good game that we'll get into a little bit later, and of course, we'll move this into another game in that AFC West, and it is, a great start for the Raiders. Let's put it that way. 14-0 to get them started. It was looking great. Put it that way. But of course, the Chiefs do kind of just storm right back. Kind of what you expected. 21 straight points rattled off. We even see Travis Kelce finally getting himself back into the little groove. Kind of getting worried with Taylor Swift not being there. His production was going down. He kind of picked himself back up in his own regard. But overall the Chiefs kind of just another one of those type games that we just expect from Kansas City. Them firing on all cylinders. Obviously someone that I know we'll talk about this on Sunday, but Rashid Rice obviously really getting himself lighting up the score sheet. Obviously over 100 yards and a touchdown. Just a great game for himself. And as I'm saying, that Chiefs defense maybe is a little bit of a cause for concern yet again, to let the Raiders have such a strong first half, but they cleaned it up in the second half. That's what matters. So overall a really solid win for Kansas City, and just quietly, and it is the stale argument, but quietly Mahomes is kind of building up at least an MVP candidate resume right now.
Yeah, as soon as I saw the Raiders go 14-0, I really just man, they're going to turn. It's happened before, and I called it. Literally told my dad, they're not going to keep this lead. Look what happened. They picked up in the second half, and Mahomes looking like his MVP self again, especially, having little okay games there, but it's really looking good for the Chiefs. Like you said, defense is mainly the only concern. Now, moving on to potentially the game of the week, as probably the one game of the week, which, didn't go my way, unfortunately, even though, for predictions, I called the Eagles, but what more can you do? The Bills, they had a 10-point lead. But obviously, Jalen Hurts, really where it mattered the most, he came back for this Eagles team. On the ground, specifically, because in the air, he really wasn't clicking in pass game, man. Obviously, with Jalen Hurts, when he really can't click in the pass game, you see a little struggle there, but five total touchdowns. I'm not going to sit here and, keep bashing him on that, but, he picked it where he really, really needed to. And Josh Allen, I guess you could say he choked when this game was pretty much on ice. The defense could not get it done on the final drive. They had a lot of ways to put this game on ice, put this game away. But I know, another thing you talked about before is the Eagles' defense is finally starting to pick it up a little bit more, especially with that secondary help. That secondary that was pretty much regressed for the season, but obviously overlooked that because they're winning. And it's because of that high-powered offense. But defense is starting to pick it up, and it's good to see for the Eagles. Not to really worry much about the defensive backs, but the overtime. I mean, Josh Allen, I believe he's now 0-6 in overtime. They changed the rules just for him, and hasn't got an overtime win at all. So it's once again, he's kind of, you see the Bills kind of start to click after beating the Jets. Sure, the Jets, say whatever you want, but the Bills, it's really looking bad. It's really looking bad for the Bills, and Josh Allen, the turnover narrative is already coming back to him. It's just not looking good at all. And for them, having them as my two seed, really is like yes, they have potential for playoffs still, but again, gonna keep going back with this. The teams that are loaded in the AFC, it's gonna take a lot for them to come back with this.
Yeah, and obviously, this loss, at least this one, I mean, it's no surprise. You probably would have expected them to lose this game, but overall, you see them at 500 this late in the season. It's obviously a big cause for concern. We've been going over it and over it, but we will have to wait and see. They do have a their schedule's not too bad after this pretty rough stretch that they get out of, so we will just have to wait and see how they can bounce back. And of course, moving it into Sunday night at SoFi with the Ravens and the Chargers. Obviously, this one was a little more boring for the most part, but it had its times. I mean, let's just start with the mishaps of the Chargers. I mean, Keenan Allen and Austin Eckler, two of the main focal points of this offense, and they both cough up the ball basically back-to-back, in back-to-back possessions, just about 2 plays in between them. That obviously was, giving the ball back to Lamar. I never want to do that. And look, sure, I mean, you don't want to fault Herbert for this, but that interception to end the first half, I mean, it was just a Hail Mary like that. Thankfully it didn't end up like the Jets Hail Mary, but I mean, it does look bad on the stat sheet, and just shows three turnovers to in the first half. Obviously that's not the way to win. And I mean, overall, the Chargers, they were put in a position that they probably should have won this game near the end, but a big key interception from not interception. Okay, they turned the ball over on downs, and that kind of did take most of their chance. And by that point, the big Zay Flowers run that I believe it was like 36 yards to take it to the house. So I mean, overall, Zay Flowers, a phenomenal game himself. One on the ground and one in there, just him himself, coming into his own, of course. And I think the biggest piece that we can talk about overall, Justin Tucker missed a 44-yarder. Obviously, best kicker in NFL history, most automatic, and to miss inside 45, pretty big news, obviously. But overall, this is definitely a big win for the Ravens. Probably a little less than ideal. You probably would have expected them to walk over the Chargers a little more, but as we say, a win's a win. And for the Chargers, I say it every video, I'm gonna keep saying it until it happens. Brandon Staley's got to go. The more we watch this, the more we can tell. I mean, it's this defense that we gotta obviously take a look into. He was brought in here to be a defensive mind, and okay, sure, they only gave up 20 points, but at the end of the day, they're not doing what they need to get this team to win. I mean, sure, reports did come out he will be fired by the end of the season, but why are they gonna wait? Just at this point, you really should just be firing him right now.
Yeah, like you said, it's obvious. Stanley's really holding the potential of this team back, and especially Herbert. Herbert, he's great. He has a lot of potential. Sure, his clutch gene is not there yet, but Stanley's really him and Kellen Moore. I mean, Kellen Moore, sure, he can produce a lot. I would know, but it just sucks a lot for Chargers. And I got them missing playoffs, so I kind of really expected this, but it just sucks. The turnovers really killed them. And closing out the Sunday slate, a lot of great slates for those games, a lot of great games, a lot of boring games. Now, obviously finishing off the week with the Monday Nighter, and not really going to talk too much about this since it was a pretty boring game, but tense towards the end. I mean, the Bears and the Vikings, NFC North matchup, a lot of stake for the Vikings. You see Josh Downs, Astronaut, already getting the name the Astronaut. I mean, the Astronaut. But it's really, I kind of don't see anything anymore with the Vikings. But again, one loss. I mean, again, like we said, after another bad game, and they end up picking it up. Who knows? Another game I might have to eat one words, maybe. But obviously, some hope for the Vikings. Justin Jefferson's making his return. I'm not a fan of this. If they were to beat the Bears, this would have been really great. Really great. They would have been 7-5. 7-5.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, not the Spurs attack. But yeah, they would have been 7-5. Really great spot for them for a wild card matchup, especially pretty much the Rams already up there. But I would have been all for Jay Jettis returning, but obviously with Josh Jacobs for 4 interceptions. I mean, sure, yeah. 2 of them, I believe, were tipped, but still, 4 interceptions that really cost the game, and the Bears on offense couldn't do anything. And the last drive, I don't know what Kevin O'Connell was doing when they could have sealed the game. That play calling, that last play, that screen on I believe it was the 3rd down and 2nd down, but with whatever down it was, it kind of cost them literally just a couple first downs. They could have just ran out the clock, and it just Kevin O'Connell. I mean, like, he seems like an okay coach, but his play calling ability at crunch time, it can be very questionable. Obviously that really killed them. Josh Dobbs, I guess you can say he's Lestani runs over. But, there's still hope. They still have a lot of potential. Jay Jettis, if he could, get this receiving core up, put less pressure on Jordan Addison, which I expect him to get more of a load, which, he was for the most part, especially with me on fantasy. But if Jay Jettis can really, help Dobbs more, then, a run is really useful here. But as for the Bears, sure, nice to see Justin Fields winning. I guess he was okay for the most part, but the Bears, Matt Ruthless, I still don't know how, he has a job. That's really a question for me.
Yeah, and I mean, I know we look back to their playoff chances and the idea that they're bringing Jefferson back. I mean, look, they still do hold the 7th seed. So at the end of the day, you do have an incentive. I do see the incentive, but, I mean, I don't know. I guess I do see the incentive. I know we kind of talked about it more, I guess, thinking about it, it does make sense, but as long as he's 100%, that's the only thing you got to really think about here. But of course, that is going to wrap us up for the Week 12 recap. Get into the predictions, and obviously we only had one disagreement, and it was in the worst game of the week. I did expect the Patriots to pull that one out, but what can you do with Mac Jones? You got the upper hand this week. I still hold a 3-game advantage in the head-to-head, so let's wait and see. I believe we do have a couple more disagreements coming into this week, so let's see if you can get another chunk out of my lead here. And of course, we do have a little something we're adding on to our predictions. So obviously, I'll let you start that with the Cowboys game.
Yeah, so like I talked about a little earlier in the video, the Dallas Cowboys are finally getting in a remaining stretch of these winning opponents. We have the Seahawks coming up, Philly again, the Bills, I'm spazzing again, sorry, the Dolphins, and then obviously closing with the Commanders. So this 5-game stretch is really going to show the true colors of the Cowboys, and with the way Dak's playing, with the way this defense has been stepping up. Like I said, after this Niners game, it really shot Dak Prescott in the foot, really turned it up. And sure, that Eagles game, everyone keeps saying, oh, you're still after the Eagles. He lifted them up. He outplayed Hurts. He lifted them up. It was just that final drive just really shot himself in the foot. And he really played well against that Eagles team. And we play Eagles at home, but we're great at that. But that's for another video. But coming into the game for the Seahawks game, the Seahawks, they're dismembered. Their defense is starting to struggle. The injury to Geno Smith is starting to hold them back. And Tyler Lockett, which Seahawks legend, you can put the category in there. He's not really picking it up when they really need to, especially DK Metcalf. He's been having a pretty mid-season. And Kenneth Walker, really great running back, but he really can't do so much. And with the way Dak's playing, this defense is playing, and again, like how CeeDee Lamb, it's going to be another game to win, like I said, in this final stretch. And I think we're going to add, which, was something that we were wanting to add, but we just didn't know how to incorporate it, key matchups. That's going to be the new thing we're going to start introducing. And in this game, this key matchups, it's going to be CD against either Woolen or Witherspoon. I'm not too sure. I'm not too well with, scheme. We kind of had this little talking. I don't know. Because I know CD lines up the slot most of the time. I don't know which of them lines up the slot or they don't. Not too sure, but regardless, whichever one of them is on CD, it's going to be a great matchup to see. CeeDee Lamb, if you can really torch this secondary of the Seahawks. I don't know with Brandon Cooks and Michael Gallup, but I already have my takes on Michael Gallup. But I do believe in Dak Prescott. He's really proving everyone wrong with this MVP, with this resume that he put up for this season. And this defense with Geno Smith are really able to put up too much progress with his team. I would expect a big game for Micah Parsons and DeMarcus Lawrence, and let alone DeRon Bland, whoever he's going to guard, Tyler Lockett or DK Metcalf. Really expect a big game for him as well.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, that defense really come into its own. I think it's going to be it's gonna come down to the defenses, and I just wait and see who comes out. But obviously, can't bet against the Cowboys in the way they're looking right now. So obviously we'll take it to my game with the Rams, and I will be in attendance. My first regular season game of this season. I already locked up the tickets, so really excited to go see that. But I guess the way it's looking right now. I mean, obviously the big thing here, you never, it does suck. You never want to celebrate an injury, but at the end of the day, the Browns are heavily injured at this moment. Obviously, they lost Deshaun Watson in quarterback 2 and Dorian Thompson-Robinson currently going through concussion. So it is going to be put back on PJ Walker more than likely, unless Thompson-Robinson gets cleared and if they actually want to roll with him. But already with that, in general they're pretty depleted, and the big story here is Myles Garrett is injured at the moment. He heard a pop in his shoulder. He was in a sling leaving the stadium. So if he misses this game, I honestly really think it's a massive. Even if he plays this game, regardless, I do think that the Rams have the upper hand right now. I believe they're favored at the moment, but who cares about odds at the end of the day? I think more than anything, it all comes down to O-line, and going into our key matchups, that's going to be my key matchup: the Rams O-line against that pretty high-powered D-line from the Browns. Whether Garrett plays or not, that's going to be a big piece to look into. And if that O-line can actually stand strong, that opens up Kyren Williams to continue the runs that he's been able to have. And I honestly do expect Kyren to kind of keep up the pace that he has, hopefully. But I guess the only other thing too, we've been talking about this as well. Cooper Kupp. I mean, sure, I'll talk about Puka a little later too, but Cooper Kupp is the big piece. He's been really slow, really hasn't been himself. Is that the ankle injury lingering a little bit? I would honestly say that might be a case, but at the end of the day, we'll see if he can actually pick it up here. Also, Puka Nacua, which the receivers were very non-existent in last week's game. So see if they can actually pick it up here. But like I said, my big thing here is going to be how that O-line can set the tempo for this game.
Yeah, without a doubt, with these both teams, with the Rams, Browns, it's a must-win for these two teams, especially with playoff implications finally starting to be a little more hammered down, especially with the Rams, especially with evening out the matchup, even out the series with this, with winning the series against the Seahawks. So it's really going to be probably one of the best games of the week as well. So obviously, good luck to that, but it's still going to be really pretty much a defensive battle. And now we're on to my highlight game of the week, which is probably going to be the game of the week for the most part: the Niners and the Eagles. This is going to be the most anticipated matchup everyone's been expecting. The NFC Conference Championship rematch. Finally, Hurts finally going to get not Hurts. Purdy's going to get to play and see what's really going to happen. And, obviously, this is our disagreement. You're going with Philly. I'm going with Niners. As much, I really, really don't want to choose between the both of them. But for seeding and division, I would have to root for the Niners, and I will do this. But really, it's going to be a big battle between Purdy and Hurts, without a doubt. I mean, the way it Hurts, obviously I already talked about the way he came back against that Buffalo Bills team. And then Purdy started to finally pick it up. Sure, it was the Seahawks. They're depleted, but just finally started to pick it up. Deebo Samuel, Trent Williams, the big monster guy, Trent Williams, that O-line finally starting to look even way better. But obviously, I think the main key matchup here as a whole, it's going to be that Eagles O-line against that 49ers pass rush. That's pretty much going to be the story of the game, whichever one's going to get the most wins. I mean, Eagles O-line. I mean, they got guys like Jordan Mailata and then Lane Johnson, but I'm not too sure of Lane Johnson. He was out against the Bills game, I believe. I don't know. I don't know.
Groin injury, yeah.
I haven't looked into it. Hopefully, if he does end up starting in the Niners team, it's going to be a really big potential hope for a win for this Eagles team. But that pass rush of the 49ers, it's horrible. With Eric Armstead, Chase Young, and Nick Bosa. It's going to put a lot of hell on Hurts, but that's really going to be the key matchup of this game. See what Hurts is going to be able to do. I would expect Hurts to run a lot, especially with guys like Fred Warner at the linebacker position. He's going to be eyeing him. And expect some picks, but it's going to be a great game regardless. It's going to be probably one of the most watched, hopefully, in the season. But I'm expecting not too much from the Niners, but for the most part, I would have to root for them at this kid. But it's gonna be a great game regardless, and then we'll see what AJ Brown and Devonta Smith can do. Two great receivers who've been picking up for this Eagles team as well. But again, it's all going to rely hopes on the Eagles defense to see what they can do against that 49ers offense as well.
Yeah, I think, a big thing, obviously that's your key matchup, but let's see how the touch push can actually fare against a really strong D line in the 49ers, and see that O line and D line. It's going to be a really nice matchup to see. Of course, we'll move into my highlight game here, and the Broncos and the Texans. Definitely definitely a matchup no one was really hyping up at the start of the season, but obviously after a really shit start, the Broncos are definitely back into the playoff contention, and the Texans, of course, they're obviously the big surprise here was CJ Stroud, and obviously coming off of a really rough loss for Stroud. I really do think that they're going to be playing angry, and they're going to be searching to keep this playoff position, because sure, the wild card's great, that's where they are right now, but they're definitely still alive with the Jaguars. I mean, they split that season series, so if they can keep pace, if the Jaguars slip up, they'll definitely be in contention. We thought the AFC South was going to be the 4 seed. They possibly could be up there in the 2 or the 3, so really could be that rebuild ahead of schedule for Houston. And as for the Broncos, I mean, same thing. You got really you covered it really well, with the Sean Payton and Russell Wilson, both of their resurgences right now, and just definitely really coming into their own after what they start 0-3 to start this season. Obviously now longest active win streak in the NFL at the moment at 5 games, so we'll see if the Texans can put a stop to it. I would expect them to. And obviously my key matchup here, I'm expecting Tank Dell against Pat Surtain. I mean, that's going to be a one to watch for sure. I mean, I'm expecting Tank Dell to go off. I do definitely think he's going to be cooking Surtain, but the way CJ Stroud, he does have that gunslinger mentality. Expect him to try to force it. Maybe Surtain does get an interception, but it's going to be a phenomenal matchup to look into here. And of course, that is going to wrap up our little preview for Week 13. Definitely got some really big matchups to look into here moving forward. So hope to have a lot of great content coming next week. Of course, we will get the other type videos. We might have some changes to Beanstalk to show you guys moving forward. We'll see, even if it's a location change. We'll just have to see. Y'all gonna have to wait around to find that out. Of course, thank you guys for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe if you're new, and hope to see you guys for the upcoming videos.